Jason, it's cold and rainy here, but it's amazing to see you. How you doing, my
Yeah.
friend?
Well, same thing here. It is cold and snowy here, and it is good to see you too. Thanks for being along for the ride.
Yeah,
We got
thank
a good
you.
episode ahead of us, and
Yeah,
another great book coming up after we're done this amazing book. Man, we're on a roll, Garth. This has
we are
been fun.
we're on a roll. But sometimes, when I look at the weather, Jason, I think, God, I wish I could be somewhere else. You know? And so I'm gonna ask you this question. It's my turn because you've been asking me a lot of questions lately.
Yeah,
So
I
it's
know, I
my
know. We
turn.
got a bad habit.
Jason, when were you the farthest from your home? And what did it feel like for you?
Oh, I, you know, physically and also probably psychologically would almost be the same answer. It was in Morocco. I was deep in Morocco, not on the coast, but in the inlands, and felt like I was really far from my home. I was, experiencing everything for the first time.
Yeah.
As the sights, the sounds, the smells, the language, the culture, the religion, the everything, and it was just all for the first time. And I felt really, really unsettled, but also really, really curious, really, and just really attuned. I felt really focused. Actually, I felt really focused on everything that was happening, and I could just feel the learning happening. I couldn't have been more excited and terrified at the same time. I was carrying both of
When
those
was this?
emotions. Oh, it was like 2003. That was a long time ago.
On
But
your own with friends, like
yeah, I was with a
recently?
friend, and we were just happened. I did no research on Morocco before I got there. I was young and didn't
Oh, wow.
understand very much. So we ended up on a train head for Fez, and all I really knew was there was leather tanning at Fez, and the little hat that is called the Fez was named after the town. I thought it'd be cool to go see it, and turned out to be really transformative. It was very, very cool.
Amazing.
Yeah, yeah. Why? What about you?
The farthest I've been from home, probably the Kingdom of Bhutan.
Yeah, that seems like a
And again,
ways away from Toronto.
sight sounds like totally different. But you get it. Like the reason I ask you is because you get a really good perspective on things. And one of the things that I think we've been doing over the last this whole season is trying to expand our perspective on leadership.
Yeah,
And I think that for me, that interview with Jennifer Wallace about never enough and mattering has been really one of those transformational validating, validating pieces where it's like you and I, when we started this podcast, we said, how do we lead in a kinder, more compassionate way? And
yeah,
now we're getting deeper and deeper into the science and the neuroscience and the strategies of doing that. And also in this podcast, I talk about what I'm currently obsessed with, which is Artemis 2 and the
yeah.
speech by Commander Hansen about
Right.
joy and mattering. And if you can be the farthest humans away from Earth and still grab, and you used this word just before this, still hang on to that attunement, I think it's super special. And I think
I
our listeners
think
will enjoy.
oh, I think our listeners are going to love this episode, and we get to tease the next set of
Our
podcasts at the end.
exciting
So
next podcast. I'm so happy about it.
yeah, I can't believe we had time for it. Okay, enjoy the show, everybody. I hope
Thanks,
I
folks.
hope
See
you
you
love
soon.
the show. Thank you.
Lassoing leadership, sharp and true. Beard's Book Club got wisdom for you. Turn the pages, let the stories flow. Unpacking lessons as we grow.
Hey, folks. Welcome back to Lassoing Leadership Season 3, Beard's Book Club. And here we are. I'm so excited about this one because we get to talk about our previous guest, Jennifer Wallace, and her books, Never Enough and Mattering. And it was, Jason, I know I wasn't there and I missed you. And I know you missed me, but you did a fantastic job. You did a great job getting a lot of information out of her. And I hope leaving our listeners for more. So welcome to the pod where we digest that interview. I'm Garth Nichols, joined as always by my amazing co-host, Jason Reynolds.
Hey Garth, I missed you during that podcast. I realized how much you matter to my relationship and my ability to do this podcast. It just did not feel.
Buddy.
Man, it didn't feel right. It was like riding a bike without a front tire. It just, I really, I'm glad to have you back.
That's
We're
kind of you.
thrilled to have you on the Jennifer podcast. But
Yeah.
I thought Jenni really brought it. And
Yeah.
she's talking about research that started in 1981, Garth, and I really get the sense that this idea of mattering was developed in the early 80s and then kind of shelved, and maybe it was just
Hmm.
so far ahead of its time that it wasn't relevant or applicable in that moment. Maybe because there are fewer societal pressures that were pulling us away from each other or pushing us against each other. But somehow, Jennifer and others, Zach Mercurio, and a lot of researchers have unearthed this idea of mattering, and it just seems like a topic of the day. It does seem to be an antidote to toxic achievement culture, to loneliness, to some of the desperation we're feeling day to day in society. And so I've said it before, I'll say it again. I think there are a few big ideas in education that have happened over the last
Yeah.
decade or couple decades, growth mindset being obviously one of the biggest, but I think mattering has the potential to break through to be one of the big ones for the day. So couldn't be happier to have Jennifer on this podcast and to hear what she had to think about it. So as you listen back to our conversation, Garth, because I know you're kind of sitting shotgun on this one in a big way, what was running through your mind as you listened to Jenni break down mattering?
Yeah, well, listeners, Jason, I talk a lot. So this has come up before where you say that mattering is the next big sort of shift. And I think what's significant is that mattering doesn't mean we bubble wrap our kids and we only focus on their feelings. And I
Mm-hmm.
think that what came through for me, the connection between her two books, Never Enough and Mattering, what came through for me was that well-being, mattering actually doesn't lower the standards. It
Yes.
actually stabilizes identity so people can actually meet and exceed them. And I loved when she said, Jason, I love achievement.
Mm-hmm.
And
Mm-hmm.
these two things aren't these. It's not a zero sum game. These two things do not compete against one another. In fact, when you apply what we know about mattering, achievement is elevated, and it feels good to
Right.
do it.
Yeah.
So that was pretty significant. And then I kept going back to, because we've talked about mattering with Zach Mercurio, in his
Mm-hmm.
book, The Power of Mattering. And listeners, if you don't recall that one, like, go back and listen to it, because he too speaks of how powerful mattering is to achievement. So I don't want people to think when schools and businesses start to focus on, making people matter, or as we heard from Rich Sheridan, Chief Joy Officer, that we're focusing on joy. It's a trade-off to high results. It's a trade-off to excellence, and it's not.
And to bring that all together, Garth, somebody you brought to the podcast, Dr. David Yeager, who wrote 10 to
Mm,
25, really does
yeah,
consolidate that idea. And I'm hearing more and more about it, that people are calling it like the rigor or the discipline mindset. But really what Yeager was talking about is where high achievement and high care meet, high index on
yeah,
both of those. And then you
yeah,
do get you get the best of both worlds, and you feel good
yeah,
about it. You've got the internal motivation, but it does come back to, you can't have this stuff until many people care about you and you know it, and they know that you're going to reach your potential. They're going to be alongside with you because ultimately you feel like you matter and you feel
yeah,
significant, like seen, heard, valued, and significant. And I think
yeah.
significance is the big part of this, which I keep bringing back to my own leadership and thinking about the significance of others. It is definitely something worth thinking about.
And so for our listeners, she mentions it in our previous podcast, but I want to go back to this idea that you can, I hesitate to use words like manufacture, but there's like a strategy for making sure that you ensure people matter. And it's not something that's hard to do. I think it's a practice that you can get into. And it's also will change the way that you lead, because she has this acronym called SAID,
Yeah.
SAID.
Yeah. Take our
And the
listeners through
S,
it, Garth.
yeah. S means seen. So people feel noticed in specific and authentic ways. So I know, like, for example, Jason, I know how you stayed after class to finish your homework, student. Like that persistence actually matters.
Yeah.
Great job. And then A is affirm. people feel that their worth is not conditional. And this is where it really breaks with this idea of toxic achievement culture. Because in toxic achievement culture, your worth is attached to your performance. But people feel that their worth is not conditional when they matter. So affirmation is about identity and belonging, not just the output. And I think that's really, really significant. The I, so we've got the S and the A, and now the I is important. People understand that what they do has impact, right? This is where their purpose begins to like anchor into the work that they do. So if they're a student, that their purpose in the classroom, their presence in the classroom really, really is important. So for example, like your work on this group project really changed how your group members experience what it means to work in a group. You brought them together. That has impact. And then the D means dependent upon. So people feel needed, not just included. People feel like they are valuable and valued, not just adding value, if that makes sense. So I think it is, as you mentioned, it's the highest form of mattering, and that's responsibility, because there's a high level of trust. So for example, Jason, I'm going to ask you to take the lead on this because you are the right person to do that. Mm-hmm. And when you bring that all together, next time you're delegating as a leader, you can think about how you can make sure the right person's in the job and that they are going to do it well by making sure that they're seen, affirmed, they'll have an opportunity to appreciate their impact, and that they feel dependent upon.
You know, when you're talking through that, Garth, I can't help back to think back to Zach Mercurio, and when he talks about being like how to give gratitude in a way that supports people in this notion of mattering, and specificity is so important. Garth, hey, you did a great job on the podcast. When you brought in the SAID method and you broke it down for our listeners, that is something our listeners can take away, put on their wall, and improve their leadership. Thanks for doing that, buddy. That specificity in the gratitude portion of mattering is extremely important, and you just modeled, exactly how to break that down. So thanks. I think our listeners are going to take a lot from that. I hope people took out a pen and paper and hit that SAID framework, and it's really important, dude.
That's why you want to read her book. And so Jason, something that you really touched on, you've spoken to me about too, is this notion of attunement.
Right.
Like when you're speaking with people. So you're not just saying it off the cuff, you're not just moving through the motions, but tell me about what you love about this concept of attunement in her work.
Well, I think it's like this idea of empathy elevated is a way I think of attunement. It's sensing and responding to what people are feeling or experiencing. And that comes with a lot of emotional energy. And I think, if somebody is feeling sad, I think a great leader can get there not in a boohoo poor us way, but in a attuned way where I can see you're feeling sad. I'm going to sit here with you in that sadness. I might not, know exactly what you're going through, but I'm attuned to that emotion. Or, we may be attuned to joy and elation. If somebody comes in and tells you that they're expecting a baby, they might come in with this fear and anxiety that they're telling their boss. Believe it or not, some people do, but I mean, they're actually so excited inside because that's the biggest, most exciting thing. So to be attuned to that excitement, I think is a really, really powerful leadership stance to have. And so I think, attunement takes practice. It takes hard work. It takes energy. It takes presence. And I think you need attunement partners where you can, ask those hard questions. Did I seem like I was here with you in the moment where you're at in your emotions or not? And for those, close, caring colleagues to be able to give you the feedback, your attunement coach, if you will, I think is a really positive thing to turn your attention to in leadership. I think people will be quicker to come along with you if you first attune to them. And again, it's accurately sensing and responding to what they're feeling and what they're experiencing. If we can get a handle on that, I think we can elevate leadership all over the place.
Yeah. And what that just brought to mind was our podcast with Quinn on coaching. right? And I think that if listeners want to go back to that, they should, because she has a real knack for attunement.
Yes.
And when you're sitting in close proximity. But Jason, listen, I'm on a bit of a tear here with Artemis 2. I'm a big fan.
Yeah. I've heard about it, Garth. I feel bad for the Blue Jays. You kind of stopped talking about them and you started talking about space. So I don't want to tell the Blue Jays that they've lost you, Garth, but this is a nervous moment for everybody. Tell me a little bit more about Artemis, if you will.
Because again, I found it amazing. That they were literally the farthest away any human's been from here, and they had attunement. And I have to go back to two things. So Commander Henson, he's the Canadian that was up there. And folks, I'm on this a lot, but if you haven't seen it, just type in, their first interview back home, go to 11 minutes and 27 seconds. They talk about the human experience while being there. I'm going to quote him. Okay. We have a term in our crew that we coined a long time ago, the joy train. And it sounds like you, the audience, us earthlings, saw a lot of joy up there. And there was a lot of joy. We're not always on the joy train, this crew. There are many times we are not on the joy train, but we are committed to getting back on the joy train as soon as we can. And that is a useful life skill for any team member trying to get something done. It is a beautiful leadership lesson for us, Jason.
That is so good.
To help understand why mattering matters in our school.
Yeah.
Because our job as leaders is to make sure that who we are leading is sustainable. And joy, happiness, those pieces are going to get us there. And I think that even he noticed, like that team noticed, well, it seemed you really like that. And so he goes on to say, what we've been hearing, and I'm quoting Hansen here, what we've been hearing is that was something that was special for you, i.e. Earthlings, to witness. I would suggest to you that when you look up here, you're not looking at us being on the joy train, not looking at us getting meaning and purpose and joy and all. He says, we are a mirror reflecting you. And if you like what you see, then just look a little deeper, because this is you. It's just amazing. And I think what Jennifer does, what Zach does, what a lot of our authors talk about too, that we've had on the book, is like gratitude, joy, mattering. It all comes together to be truly effective leaders, to get the most out of our purpose and their purpose as well.
Wow. I don't know how you top that, Garth. Where do we go from there? That is important stuff right there. And I think, listening to those words about attuning to joy, I think that's really, and also the realism that there is a full broad range of human and group emotions and dynamics, is an extraordinary leadership lesson. Thanks for sharing that with our listeners. That was really, really powerful.
Thanks, man.
So where do we go from there?
I think we go to the corner person.
Yeah, I did love that too, Garth. I mean, you listen to Jennifer talk about having the corner person, and what's funny, Garth, is I recently had this conversation I want to share with you. So I've often ascribed to the singular coach model, where I'll have a utility knife, Swiss Army knife coach who will work with me, once a week, once every 2 weeks, once a month, whatever the time frame is, and we'll talk about leadership challenges, and that works for me. Like, it's just good to have somebody to bounce ideas off of. But I was talking to a colleague the other day, and she said, this is where a network comes in, because if I come into a financial challenge in my organization, I pick up the phone and I call the 3 people who know the most about either finance or that type of financial challenge, and I say, tell me about this. And then she said, when I run into another human resource issue, for instance, I don't call those 3 people who did the finance thing. I call the 3 best human resource solvers I know, and I chat about that. And if it's another challenge, and she said, I've only been able to do that because I've built out a big network, a lot of people in my network. And so as I was speaking with her, I started to feel like she had a lot of corner people in her life who she can do this with. And I think Jennifer talks about the corner person, and I think it's true. We should have one kind of morale corner person who's going to pull us along and tell us yes we can and tell us all these things. But I think there's a training team behind the scenes, right? There's a person who brings you strength, who does a cardiovascular, who does a strategy, who does a tactics. I think there's that bench strength which we have to develop, and we have to nurture, and we have to grow over time. So I just want to present that, alternate coaching model to our listeners, kind of in the frame of a corner person. And so that was another thing that I think, just if we're pulling on strings from Jennifer's podcast, that would be one of the ones I'd ask our listeners to really think about. I think it can be a big solve in our leadership.
Yeah. And that reminds me to going back to all the previous people we've had in the book, but it reminds me of Phoebe Trotman, this idea of, who's your personal board of directors, who's your cornerman. And Jason, I think it's quite significant that, like I've got you, like I call you if I'm in need, and you're part of a larger network of corner people, of a board of networks. And so I think one thing we can leave our listeners with here when we're talking about mattering, and this is a really cool thing that happened to me when I was at a recent conference. Someone asked, we were sitting in a group, and someone asked, who in your world, and I chose the world of work, knows they matter to you? And I think that's a really powerful question for us to consider. And, someone came to mind, and it was great. I don't work closely with this person. She's a teacher at my school, but we've shared these moments, happy, sad, regular day moments, and all those things. But I think her name came to mind because if something were to go wrong with her, or if she needed something, advice, support in anywhere, I think she knows that she could come to me because she knows that she matters to me. And it's a really good thing for leaders to do. How are you making sure that people know they matter to you as a leader? I know you have a couple of practices that you do. You share your gratitude and stuff like that. And you have that practice that's within you, because one of the parts of mattering, as Zach Mercurio will say too, is we need to communicate it. You can't just sit there and assume they know, especially as leaders, right?
And I think what you're walking up to right now, Garth, I'm going to push us over the line, is listeners, pause the podcast when I'm done this sentence and write down that person's name who really matters to you at work. After you write down their name, leave it on pause for a moment and do something about it. Write them a note, send them a text, send them an email, give them a call, and just let them know that they are important to you, that they matter to you. And I think, that practice done once a day, once a week, once a month, whatever the case is, will change the way they see you in your leadership, but also the way you see you in your leadership. And I think it's really, really powerful. And don't forget to hit unpause when you're done and listen to the end of the podcast. So go for it. Hit pause and tell somebody they matter. Do it.
Great. Hopefully you did. We gave the pause.
We're back.
Awesome. So hopefully, you can't be hateful and grateful at the same time. So this is all about, managing our emotions and setting us up. And that is something I learned from Bob Hayes. He's a colleague of mine as well at Kingsway College School, does our mindfulness well-being program. Some great pieces there. But Jason, this is a good segue for us. Now that they've paused, they've gone back. Now they're coming back. Jason, let's move forward here. We've had this New York Times best-selling author. Who do we have on next?
Next, Wall Street Journal best-selling author Cassie Holmes. She's coming in hot to talk about happiness as well, but talking about time and how do we manage our time and how do we find the time to be grateful and to be great spouses and to be great leaders and parents and friends, and how do we find time to be joyful? And can we be joyful with so many time constraints? And what do we do if we hate our job and we think we're too busy at work? How do we get more joy in our job and work? Cassie Holmes is an incredible thinker. She calls herself a me searcher, but she's a researcher at the UCLA School of Business. And she's accepted our invitation to come on the show. And I couldn't be more excited about that as well.
Yeah, you heard her speak. We both read her book. One of the things that I love about the book, too, is she talks tangentially and sometimes directly, but mostly tangentially about this attention economy, right? And what we are paying attention to. And so on behalf of Jason and I listeners, thanks for paying attention to us.
You got it.
We are trying to bring you the books that really are shaping a leadership journey and crafting a leadership vision where we can lead in a kinder and more compassionate way.
And I think that's a perfect place to wrap up, Garth. So for our listeners, thank you for listening today. And don't forget to keep reading and leading the Lasso Way. Garth, that was a ton of fun. Thanks, man.
Thanks, buddy.
Grab your coffee, grab your seat. It's time to learn, it's time to meet. Garth and Jason setting the tone. Leadership lessons to take back home. Lassoing leadership sharp and true. Beard's Book Club got wisdom for you. Turn the pages, let the stories flow. Unpacking lessons as we grow. Keep leading the lasso way. Together we'll grow stronger every day. So plug in your headphones and let's start the show. With lessons from Ted, we'll learn and grow. Lassoing leadership sharp and true. Beard's Book Club got wisdom for you. Turn the pages, let the stories flow. Unpacking lessons as we grow. Keep leading the lasso way. Together we'll grow stronger every day. So plug in your headphones.